there's one particular part of that, and it is a short sequence, but where Paul Mescal's character creates a dust cloud by throwing up some sand and dust, and the rhino just heads straight into the wall. That is actually a beautifully executed scene by Framestore, I think, because you've got the dust, you've got this bloody rhino, you've got a human character, stunt person for Paul, getting kind of thrown around. You've got the person on top of the rhino as well. And then just the integration with the dust. Yeah. It's actually a beautiful sequence. Part of the sequence, it goes by so quickly.
I know.
that I sort of wanted more of it, you know. But kudos to Framestore for pulling that off. It's a super beautiful part of the scene. This podcast is brought to you by Befores and Afters magazine. Befores and Afters magazine is the monthly print mag from VFX journalist Ian Fales. Go in-depth on key visual effects topics with major VFX supervisors, artists and studios. Each issue covers a different area like creature animation, miniatures, on-set VFX and VFX tools. Find your copy at beforesandafters.com/magazine.
This podcast is also brought to you by Hugo's Desk new compositing course. Join today to have access to 150 pre-recorded classes, 50 hours of training, using real production assets covering industry standard techniques with over 200 gigs of showreel material and access to a private Discord channel with over 2,300 students. This course is endorsed by Foundry and has access to a Foundry student license paid separately. Join today at hugosdesk.myshopify.com. And now on to the show.
Hi everyone, welcome to this special episode of the VFX Notes podcast with me, Ian Fales from Befores and Afters, and Hugo Guerra from Hugo's Desk. Hi Hugo, how you going?
Hi Ian, how you doing?
Very good. And today we're going to be talking about rhinos. Right, Hugo?
Just in general, we're not going to even mention the movie. We're just going to talk about rhinos in general. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is us. We really want to give. You know, we all know that the 5 nominees of the Oscars, we know which ones they were, but we really feel that there was another 5 movies that really deserve our attention from the Bake-off. And so this is the first of those 5 videos, which is on Gladiator 2. Yeah, I can't believe we're talking about Gladiator 2.
Well, we're going to narrow in on the rhino scene, but before we get there, a brief look at what we thought about the film. I'm going to go first here, Hugo.
Go for it.
And say that 2 things. I was super excited about this film. I'm a big fan of the 2000 original Gladiator, directed by Ridley Scott and with Russell Crowe. And I thought the idea for this film was kind of cool. And then when I was watching it, I was loving it. I thought the crowd work, the battles, the drama, the story was fantastic for about half of the film. And then it didn't stop. It just kept going. And there was something about a sun and some battle outside the gates of Rome. I don't even remember what happened. But I really did enjoy half the film, and the mood and the tone and the visual effects actually as well were fantastic. But gosh, it just didn't want to end, that film, and I wish it had.
It was incredibly long, yeah.
Well, I don't even know if it was that long. It just didn't have an ending that was as compelling, clearly, as the first film, and it just didn't quite know where to go. In fact, I honestly felt that final confrontation in the river on the outside the gates of Rome, or wherever it was meant to be, was a total reshoot or an add-on, or just felt like it was. Whether it was, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But tell us what you thought of the film, Hugo.
Yeah, it's 2 hours and a half. You know, it's a stretch. It's a real stretch, but it is not uncommon. Films are now long. Here, man, I'm a huge fan of the first Gladiator. Love the movie. Really love it. Special place on my heart. Especially was the film that the Mill won the Oscar. And I got to every day that I went to the Mill to work, I would go through the entrance, and there was the Oscar of the Gladiator right on the entrance of the company. So I got to see it every day, pass through it. So it was great. But this was a sequel I was not really thinking was needed to be done. Like I just feel that this was not necessary. It was a big stretch. The film was over. Gladiator 1 is a film on their own. There's no need for a sequel. I mean, the main character dies. There's nothing to say. It's over. It's over, my friends. Why do it? It feels a bit like a cash grab. It doesn't really feel like it was necessary. It's a big stretch of the sun coming in and continuing the saga. It just felt like a lot of fan service, a lot of the same music coming in, trying to give you memories of 25 years before, and a lot of rehashing of old things. Even some actors came back to do certain scenes. I don't know. I just felt the film was beautiful. The VFX were beautiful. The cinematography was beautiful. Very well directed. I really liked Denzel Washington in the movie. And even the main characters, Paul Mescal was great, and Pedro Pascal was great. He's always great on everything, and the Emperors were great as well. I thought that was cool, but I just kept watching the movie and feeling, why does this exist? What's the point? Like it's like you. I also never understood the ending. Never understood what was going on, where it was going. I was really confused by the ending, and I was really, because we basically end the same place where we were on the first one. The first one, he dies, and then they decide to give Rome to the citizens and to the Senate. And now we did all of this, and now we're doing the same. It's like, okay, like it just, I don't know. Like I felt like it was really unnecessary.
Yeah.
And somehow, when I now look back, I think it actually ruins a bit the first one, because it doesn't need to exist. That's my feeling.
Yes. The first one manages to be an adventure, fantastical, battle-heavy movie. Although, actually, I rewatched it in 35mm a couple of months ago.
Oh, wow.
And there's not as many fights as you remember. They just feel so powerful. Yeah. But here's the other thing. The first film is spiritual.
Yeah.
And they just do such a good job with him thinking about his wife and child.
Yeah, I
and
know.
Going into Valhalla.
It's beautiful. Beautiful.
This film, they have even like some river type sequences. I think they're called something very specific, but it does not work. There was also one thing that I am totally going to botch in terms of trying to describe it. They really tried to create this mystery about whether or not he was Maximus's son.
Yeah.
Like during the film. And I just think they milked that way too much, and it didn't kind of work and wasn't a big climax, in relation to the son thing. But yeah, the thing is, in a cinema, as I always go on about Hugo, I absolutely loved looking at it. And as I say, enjoyed the first two acts. And then, gosh, what happened?
Yeah, the film is beautiful on the cinema. I watched it the film is not shot on IMAX, but I watched it on an IMAX screen. And so the whole format for IMAX, something like that. So it was glorious, absolutely. I watched it on an empty screening with like 3 people in their screening.
Yeah.
And as usual here in the UK, I don't know what's going on with the cinemas in the UK, but it's really funny that you just mentioned that thing with the son. There's also something really strange happening on the film for me, which is Paul Mescal is doing all these mannerisms of his father, doing all these things. He really hardly saw his father, and there's a lot of moments where he's almost like trying to be exactly like his father, but he didn't really saw him. How is that even possible? There's a lot of memories from Russell Crowe performance that people have and of that character, but how would they know? I don't know, man. There's something weird about that. Like there's something fishy about it, and And Russell Crowe is Russell Crowe. Come on, like it's just not. It's not the same. He's good. Paul Mescal is good, but Russell Crowe, man, he has such a. He's so powerful on the
Yeah,
screen.
gravitas, and that's what made the film is Russell. Yeah,
I
that's
know.
right.
It's
First
his defining film, and it's just the weight of him on the movie. It's just like it's impossible to replicate, and you can't. And this movie just, I don't know. I'm not sure what Ridley Scott is doing lately. To be honest, like I don't know. Like he's disappointing me a few times. Like Gladiator 2 was not really my cup of tea. Napoleon was not my cup of tea. It's just I haven't really enjoyed. I think his last film I really enjoyed from him was The Martian. I really love that movie. That movie is extraordinary. I really like that movie. But I think that's the last time, and that's already 10 years ago or something. It's the last movie that I really enjoyed from Ridley Scott. So
Yeah. Well, anyway, Gladiator 2, there was an interesting release of Gladiator 2, of course, which happened on the same weekend of Wicked.
Yeah.
And they were sort of trying for that Barbie Oppenheimer thing. They didn't quite get there, but I sort of applaud the film studios for trying it and doing it. That's quite fun that they went there. But Hugo, to narrow in just on one visual effects scene, we thought we'd talk about the Rhino, which is a Colosseum battle involving a rhino. The first thing that's most interesting, I think, about this is that a rhino scene was meant to be in the first film.
Yeah.
And we know that Ridley and the storyboard artist drew up storyboards for this, and it kind of got into some sort of concept or testing phase at a VFX studio, right?
Yeah, that was fascinating when I heard about this story. It's just fascinating. Obviously, we're talking about the year 2000. I'm assuming they couldn't really pull it off, or if they would have pulled it off, it would have looked quite wonky. I think it would have looked quite wonky. But you have this amazing interview clip on your channel from Neil Corbell talking about this, isn't it? That he's on a meeting with Ridley Scott.
Yeah. Well, he ended up for this film, Gladiator 2, producing the Rhino animatic, but he also held these storyboards in relation to the Rhino scene for the 2000 film. And when he had that meeting with Ridley, he said, or someone said, put the Rhino back in the film. And that's basically what made it happen. What I think is fascinating is I've talked to a few people who were involved in the visual effects of the first film, including John Nelson, the visual effects supervisor, and some people at Tippett who were at Tippett Studio. And Tippett was one of the studios I heard that did a CG test of a rhino, or at least, helped talk about movement and what kind of things would be needed for a CG character. Obviously, Phil Tippett had that experience on Jurassic Park by then, and also Tippett had suddenly become known, Tippett Studio, suddenly become known for doing amazing CG creatures with Starship Troopers. And Starship Troopers would have come out, and there would have been just a period of time after that where this film would have been in development. So Tippett and, of course, some studios like ILM would have been the go-to places for CG creatures. I'm not sure if Milfilm at the time had much experience with CG creatures, Hugo. Is that...
No,
I'm not sure about that.
They weren't. They wouldn't. No, I mean, Milfilm at the time, they were very good mainly because of their flame pipeline and mainly because of their commercials pipeline. They were really good at doing these stadiums and these backgrounds and these matte paintings and these really huge shots. They also did a lot of work, of course, replacing the main actor that died, like Oliver Reed. Yeah. They had a lot of that work as well, which was really beauty work, trying to stitch shots together and plates together. But no, I don't think the mill... To be fair, the mill was never, ever really a specialized creatures place, ever. Like, even even until now, I know now they've closed, but even until now, they did some good work with creatures, especially the really famous PETA commercial with the ape with the gun. That was a really famous commercial that they did in the 2010s or something, and the Beetle commercial for Volkswagen, but they were never a staple like Framestore or from other companies that were really famous by doing creature work, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Interestingly, what I remember also about that late 90s time was that visual effects studios were often asked to do these CG tests that sometimes helped greenlit a film, but often they determined whether a creature would make it into the film at all.
Yeah.
And I don't know this for sure, but I do understand that it's quite possible Tippett maybe did a test, as did PDI at the time. And
wow.
PDI was just in this transition from a commercials house, visual effects studio, and doing animated features as well. But they stuck, they're also doing visual effects. And there is a reel out there of a Rhino test that I believe is a PDI test. But I think in the 25 years of history, people have kind of forgotten whether maybe that was a model built at PDI or done at Tippett and sort of shared around. And I just think it's really interesting because that test looks pretty good, but it's just a sort of Rhino quite stoic and still, whereas I imagine the storyboards were a bucking Rhino doing pretty much the same thing as in Gladiator 2 in the end. But anyway, that history of a CG test is sort of fascinating to find its way into the second film.
And it's fascinating, this thing of them bringing it back. I love that. I love that story of him. Oh, here's some storyboards. Remember this? And then, oh yeah, we're going to do it now. It's just really Ridley Scott, really, because he just wants to do these really crazy one-piecers always on his films. And I'm sure he didn't even remember anymore. And then he just suddenly put this extra scene on the film. And it's a really cool sequence. It's really well made as well and really cool. And I feel like it's a big of a surprise as well on the movie. But the movie has so many things that it kind of gets a bit lost, to be fair, because it has too much stuff. But yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. So in this Gladiator 2 film, as opposed to the first film, they did actually shoot this sequence with a, as we say, Rhino animatronic, developed by Neil Corbould, and that actually allowed an actor to sit on, the back of the Rhino, and then be driven around kind of by radio control with wheels, which I reckon, like anyone who wants a job in special effects, that's got to be like the ultimate, right? Not only just to build it, but to operate it on set.
I would love so much to see this as well. We never see this on the breakdown. We never see this animatronic Rhino.
We do.
On the breakdown? Yeah. Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. A really curious thing is that Framestore released a breakdown with just like almost one frame of the animatronic, but then the overall breakdown for the film, which was actually also the Oscar Bake-off breakdown, which contains work by ILM and Framestore, has much more of the animatronic, which is pretty cool. And you'll probably be watching that now as we're talking. And, it is really literally just a buck of the Rhino, but with wheels. It's the right color, and it's got strapping and the saddle and all that sort of thing. So I don't imagine it was ever going to be something that stayed in the frame, although the intention, of course, was to keep the soldier in the frame.
Yeah.
But that's often how special effects and visual effects work together, right? Like it's just something there to light, something there to give movement. That's clearly the whole point of it.
Yeah, and it helps so much because then you have, although most of the shots they replace the rider with the CG rider, and that's normal because they have to do the movement of the Rhino. Absolutely. And they have to, the person has to hold this gravity point, and it's impossible to keep the plate because it would have looked so fake and so wonky. but having the real thing there with the harsh sunlight and with all the dust on this it just makes a huge difference for the compositors and the lighting artists, because then they have the reference, they know where the light is coming from, they have the direction, they also know how the blur works and how the pixels should be looking, and the motion blur as well. They have a lot of information about what the motion blur should look like. It just makes, whenever you have the opportunity, you should shoot something, even if it's just a doll or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Just shoot something, because it will always help. And I know people will like, oh, but then we need to paint it out. But it's worth it. It's really worth having it there,
Yeah. There's one particular part of that, and it is a short sequence, but where Paul Mescal's character creates a dust cloud by throwing up some sand and dust, and the rhino just heads straight into the wall. That is actually a beautifully executed scene by Framestore, I think, because you've got the dust, you've got this bloody rhino, you've got a human character, stunt person for Paul, getting kind of thrown around. You've got the person on top of the rhino as well. And then just the integration with the dust. Yeah. It's actually a beautiful sequence. Part of the sequence, it goes by so quickly.
I know.
that I sort of wanted more of it, But kudos to Framestore for pulling that off. It's a super beautiful part of the scene.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It goes way too fast. I feel that was a sequence they could have lingered a bit more, and they could have had more things happening. I really liked the way the rhino kills one of the gladiators with his horn, and then just throws him like a ragdoll against the stone. I wish they would have done that with the rest as well. They would have killed a few more and then just like have the rhino for a few more sequences. It would have given a bigger feeling of fear and dread as well. It would have been more scary as well. But hey, this movie has too many sequences, so they didn't have time for it. They didn't have to. They had to go on with the baboons and just go to the other shots.
Well. Unfortunately, that baboon sequence is one of the poorer scenes, and I don't mean because of Framestore's work on those baboons. There's something about the way that was shot with, you might tell me, Hugo, but some sort of particular shutter angle or speed that just doesn't quite suit the baboon sequence. Like, it's staccato-ish, and it just makes the baboons kind of pop off the screen a bit too much.
Yeah.
And I reckon that must have been a challenge for Framestore in terms of frame rate and compositing there.
It's the shutter speed, because it's a very typical thing of doing these action sequences, especially on the first Gladiator. When you have this happens also on Savage Private Ryan, when you start messing around with the shutter speed of the camera to make it look more like action-oriented sequences, you start having some problems trying to put in CG, and of course those films, Gladiator 1 and Private Ryan has no CG there's no CG on those sequences, so it's all shot practically, and so you don't really get that problem. It doesn't really stand out that much because it's all done, but it's quite tough to comp in that, because it always looks strange, even when you look at it without CG, even when you look at the main plate, even just the actors playing. The shutter speed trick is also very, very much not used anymore. It's also a very old school way of shooting action. We don't often see this on movies these days, but it's a very big staple of the 90s and 2000s. There's a lot of movies that do that, and Ridley Scott is... I understand, because he's trying to connect the two movies, and so, and if anything, the two movies look very similar in the way they're shot and the lighting and the look, the general look of the movies. They really glue really well together. If you look them back to back, and I guess it has to do with the fact that they use the same cinematography as the first film. John Matson, which is a frequently collaborator of Ridley, not as much as he used to. He did a lot of movies in the beginning, right after Gladiator, like Hannibal and Magic Man, and he did a few films with Literally. He hasn't really worked with him lately, but it's interesting that he's back because it makes the film more similar, and it's although it's not shot on film like the original, it's shot on digital, I believe. But I think all those tricks, the shutter speed and the look and the sun, the harsh sun, they're all there. That's why it doesn't really help the CG. No, you're right, it doesn't. I think it makes it hard to, and that there's another thing as well that makes it not really right. It's what's happening in reality. The whole fight sequence of the baboons, it's really well animated, but I really feel on a lot of moments that they should just... I don't believe for a moment that Paul Mescal can fight them because they're so much stronger. They have so much bigger teeth. A lot of moments, you kind of feel that the monkeys are just waiting a bit and don't kill him right away. And you just see a lot of them on the background. Why don't they just all attack him? It's all a bit staged, and it makes it a bit more fake as well. It's all a bit one at a time, comes in and tries to kill him, then he pulls him out, and then it's very old-fashioned kind of action going on there. And it really makes the whole thing not really work as well, I think. I think that's why.
Yeah. The baboon scene is probably not as memorable, clearly, as the rhino scene, but I think the whole lineage from film 1 to film 2 with the rhino is really curious and interesting, and great work there from Framestore. Of course, the other big studio was ILM on the film, and Mark Bukowski was the visual effects supervisor, who's from ILM. Yeah. So, we just wanted to highlight the rhino scene, but I'm glad we talked a little bit about the baboons, Hugo. Plenty of other great visual effects work in the film, and there's a few great breakdowns you can watch from it. But thanks everyone for joining us on this special bonus episode. Make sure you go and watch our special season on the 2025 VFX Oscar nominees. Cool. Really great to jump into this one, Hugo. Thanks so much.
Okay. See you later. Bye.